5 years ago, Amazon announced they had secured the rights to my favorite intellectual property, The Lord of the Rings, and we're going to be making a TV show. In those 5 years, we've seen the worst trailers of all time, god-awful marketing, a horrifyingly ugly fan community, and now finally, 24 hours before public release, I've seen the first 2 episodes of the show, courtesy of a special fan screen that Amazon hosted in a sold-out theater. Well, what are my thoughts? It was actually pretty good. I can't believe it. It was actually pretty good. And before you start saying, this guy's paid off by Amazon, Amazon didn't give me shit, all right? But this was awesome. So I'm going to be breaking down my thoughts top to bottom, completely spoiler-free, and let you know what I thought, what I loved, what I liked, what I disliked, and what I hated. Without further ado, let's get right into it. I've just come home from the event. It was sold out. The atmosphere was great. Free popcorn, free drinks. Some people were in costume. I'm not really in costume, but I did sort of an Elven-inspired outfit. But yeah, I'm going to break it down for you, spoiler-free. Let's get into it. So the first and most important thing to me going into this film was, going into this show was, does it feel like Middle-earth? And more importantly, does it feel like the established tone we have for Middle-earth? Namely, growing up with the Jackson films, I know this isn't Jackson canon. Okay, you know what? Let me stop right there. Amazon was very insistent that this is not canon to the Jackson films and they are their own thing. There are some visuals and some character design that are so explicitly, I watched it and I was like, this is literally Peter Jackson. But they say it's not canon to the Jackson films. I think they're trying that legal gray area real hard here. But I'm fine with it because this felt like the established Middle-earth that we're used to. The architecture of Lindon and Khazad-dûm and the aesthetics, the wardrobe, everything about this felt like Middle-earth that we know and love, which was my number one concern. And since I'm mentioning the locations, let's talk about the visuals of this show. This is in a league of its own. I have seen no show ever in my life with visuals that even come close to this. I mean, even House of the Dragon, I'm watching my friends and the budget's there, but the visual effects, some of those locations and some building and some architecture CGI, the dragons look pretty good, but some of that CGI was just yeesh. But this show, I don't know how much they spent on this season, like $1 billion or something. Every single penny shines through on the screen. Every frame screams, we spent $1 billion on this, and I mean that in the best possible way. This show looks incredible. From the wardrobe, to the cinematography, to the lighting, to the sets. Oh, when they were in Lindon, when they're on the Sundering Seas, Khazad-dûm, the Harfoot's little area, everything just looked and felt right. I was so relieved. Now, the music, too. I want to talk about the music. There are 2 moments, 3, where the music just hit and I felt, okay, if I didn't know that it was Bear McCreary scoring this, and you told me it was Howard Shore, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sounds pretty in line with the other Lord of the Rings stuff. The song Harfoot Life, when the Harfoots are introduced, the soundtrack in that scene is brilliant. The elves, particularly, there's a lovely, lovely moment. You see it in the trailers. Them on that. Even if you haven't seen the trailers, I won't even talk about that. But there is just moments with the elves and the vocals, and it has that beautiful tone of the elvish choirs and singing going on. It was just incredible to me. It was so incredible. And Khazad-dûm, when they are in there, that everyone's been saying how good the Khazad-dûm theme is. But it was just incredible. I felt like I was back home. But really, there were 2 moments where I was on the edge of tears thinking, like, these are going to go down as classic Lord of the Rings moments to me. And only in the first 2 episodes. Actually, they're both in the first episode. But the way the music just hit with the visuals, it just felt right. So let's talk about the cast a bit, okay? The casting in this is to perfection. And I want to talk about how Amazon said that this isn't canon to the Jackson films. The guy they've got playing young Elrond, he pulls that scornful Elrond face a few times, and buddy, you're young Hugo Weaving. I see it in your brow line, okay? They felt like the characters I knew for the most part. Now, Galadriel is a different story, but that's because I think Galadriel in Fellowship of the Ring, for example, she speaks so slowly, 9 set out from Rivendell, yet only 8, or whatever, right? She has that slow, beautiful cadence to her voice. Galadriel in this has a very hasty delivery, and that could be due to the direction she was given, but that's okay because this is, centuries prior to Fellowship of the Ring. So it's okay that Galadriel has that sort of young spirit and that kind of hasty desire and urgency to her voice. Totally fine with me. But Elrond feels a little bit more closer to the Elrond we know in Fellowship, and his deliveries are spot on this guy. But let me talk about the rest of the cast here. I'll talk about my least favorites first. Actually, they're all good. No one's really bad, but Arondir, okay? He is I think they're called the Sindarin elves. Arondir, okay, his wardrobe though is insane. His elf gear that he was, that bark breastplate with the face carved into it, is stunning. But Arondir, his storyline and just his characterization, they don't give him much to work with in terms of dialogue. So I was very much like, I love the way you look and the way you move and the way you speak, but what you're saying and what you're speaking isn't really gripping you. But I'll get into that later. So Arondir as a character looks really cool and feels really cool, but I don't know if he actually is really cool. But let's talk about the two characters I always am like, I want more. Nori Brandyfoot, I believe her name is, one of the Harfoot hobbits. I will die for you, okay? The delivery, this woman is... They're not called the hobbits, they're just called the Harfoots, right? They're like the proto-hobbits, whatever. And also the scale work on them, they look so tiny at points. It's just brilliant. But Nori Brandyfoot is such a charm, and I wanted Nori. For all I cared, this could have been the Nori show. And they were the characters I was most concerned about. I was like, do we really need the Harfoots? Because we're doing Second Age, which is very elf-centric, right? And Durin and Disa, okay, I'll talk about Durin and Disa real quick. Their chemistry is unbelievable. They are so good and so believable as dwarves. This is the best depiction of dwarves we've seen on screen, point blank, period, ever, okay? The dwarves in this, they look so different and so, I want to say diverse, but when people hear the word diverse, they think like in a political correctness term. I mean, that's there too. There are dwarves of all different skin tones, but each dwarf looks like they've lived their own life, and they don't have this sort of homogenous look that you come to expect in a lot of like dwarf in cinema. Same with the elves too. The elves in this, I like the short-haired elves, okay? Everyone's like, oh, every elf has to have super long hair, but I'm thinking, when have you ever been in a society where everyone has the same haircut, okay? And I know that there's a kind of an established idea for what the elves look like, but remember, people say, oh, Elrond has short hair. He has shorter hair than he has in Fellowship, but if people look at like the Beatles in their day and age, people said, oh, the Beatles have long hair, right? Elrond's got pretty long, sway hair for that kind of standard, but there are elves with straight out short hair. Arondir has a close shave, and Galadriel's brother, he has really short hair as well. All sorts of guys have short hair. I don't mind it. I really don't mind it at all, because it adds a sense of uniqueness and individuality and realness to them. Whereas I don't think everyone in this society is going to have the same exact standard of what I want to look like and how I want to present myself. So I love that. But let me go back to Nori Brandyfoot here. Okay. Nori's storyline is really interesting, but her characterization and the way she acts is just perfect. I love the Harfoots and what they're doing with them. And bring me to Meteor Man. There's not much I can say at all, really. What you get in the trailers, if you've seen them, is pretty much what we're seeing. This guy is such an enigma. I can't really talk about the Meteor Man at all without kind of leaning you one way or another. But anyway, the Meteor Man is a really interesting character, and I always wanted more of him on screen. Anytime his scene was end, I'd be like, oh, let's go back to Meteor Man. I want to see him. But I loved everything we saw on screen, except for Arondir's storyline dragged a bit. So let me talk about the storyline, okay? Because the story is not hooking me, okay? House of the Dragon, for example, hooked me. House of the Dragon from the get-go, I was like, oh, damn, this is interesting. Who are these people? I'm loving what's going on. I was following that story, excited to see where it's going to go next. Whereas this is a bit more standard fantasy story of bad guy, good guy, and that's it. Except for Elrond's storyline. I won't tell you what all the storylines are, but Elrond's storyline is really interesting to me. And I really love seeing what they're going to do with Elrond and his task. But Galadriel's probably my least favorite to follow, Galadriel and Arondir. Just because their stories are so simple of what they're doing, and I'm not really invested in their tasks and their goals. But Nori and Elrond, they are up to really exciting stuff and stuff I'm very interested in seeing. So that is kind of the bad, I guess. I'm just not as gripped as I am with a lot of other fantasy shows, and with Lord of the Rings, for example, or even The Hobbit. There's a clear task. I know exactly what they're doing, and I want to see them get there. But with Galadriel and Arondir, I'm like, I don't sense the urgency, first of all, and I just don't think it's that exciting. But with Elrond, I'm like, yes, and Celebrimbor as well. I love him. And Nori's storyline is just awesome. But so there is a kind of a mixed bag when it comes to story. So let's move on from here. Let's look at my notes. What else do I want to talk about here? I'm consistently excited, though. Every time I was watching something, I was like, okay, following along, hungry for more. And every time a scene ended, I was looking forward to going back to it. And it did have me sort of invested, just depended on the characters. But I was always excited. I never was like bored. I was never, even Arondir and Galadriel, though I've said their storylines are more kind of meh to me, I was never bored because it's carried by, holy shit, this is transcending. Like, some of the scenes with Galadriel are so stunningly beautiful, I was just rocked to my very core. But yeah, there really is no bad to the show. It's only great, good, and meh. But I was expecting this show to be, okay, Wheel of Time was like a 5 out of 10. This is like an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10 for me right now. With like Wheel of Time was so first of all, it didn't look expensive. It looked really cheap. It looked bad. The storyline was the execution was and the Wheel of Time just held for me because I liked the characters and the cast. But this was, I was expecting like, oh god, this marketing is so shit. This trailers are horrible. The music in the trailers are horrible. And then I watched the show and I'm like, where the fuck has this been? You know, it's like, I thought it was going to suck. I really did. And I kind of lied to myself a little bit. I was like hyping it up and I was talking like my brother wasn't too hyped on it. And I was like, oh, it looks really incredible to me. We're going back to Middle Earth. And he was kind of like, it just doesn't look right to me. And I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh God, maybe he's right. But then I watched the show and I was like, this is fucking crazy. We're back in Middle Earth. So anyways, you get the point of what I'm trying to say here. I like the show. And I'm sure a lot of you are going to fucking hate it. If you're dead set on hating it because it's sacrilege to the lore or whatever, I just don't see it that way, man. I just don't see it that way. Yeah. And a lot of y'all were mad that I called Willie Jenkins a Tolkien expert. But guess what? The guy's pretty fucking smart, all right? But point is, a lot of people are going into the show with their mind made up. I'm going to hate this. I will hate this whether I want to or not. And what are you watching this review for? Like, everyone who's going to comment negatively on this review, I'm like, You know you're not going to like it if you think Amazon's so horrifying and so evil. I mean, they are as a company, but as a production studio, they have some bangers, man. The Boys is a good show. Wheel of Time was like quite mid, but they got other fucking shit. Like, but this was good stuff, man. So if you hate Amazon, why are you watching the show? But anyways, I'm shockingly resounding yes to do I recommend this show? Do I think it's going to be good? Yes, yes, yes. I thought it was all incredible. So I'm just really positive on this whole thing. I was really expecting to be like coming out of this like, could be good, could be bad. Those episodes had a lot of give and take, but no, this was resoundingly positive experience for me. And I'm so excited to talk more about this show. Which leads me to announce the next guest on Luke and Friends is someone you may have heard of. Don Marshall 72, the TikToker, obscure Tolkien facts is what you might know him as. So Don Marshall is going to be coming on sometime in the next month for the next episode of Luke and Friends. Sorry I haven't pushed out the next few. It's just been trouble nailing down guests and editing the last taping. But yeah, and I also might be doing some other stuff with a friend of mine, Kayla, but we'll see what happens with that. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. And Rings of Power is a good show. I can't fucking believe it. Woo! Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great night. And thanks for joining. See you next time.